So now we're going to hear from Tempest Williams. Terry's a writer, an activist, a visiting professor at Dartmouth, and the most inspirational woman I know. Her guidance since I took her class at Dartmouth last spring has been invaluable in shaping my outlook, not only as an activist, but as a woman and as a voice crying out for change. Never could I have imagined before Dartmouth that I would consider a professor such a dear friend. She has been a tireless advocate for change for many years, speaking out for women, for the land, for justice, and today she speaks for all of us.
Good evening. It is such a privilege to be here with you, to be with these powerful student leaders. Thank you, Morgan. It goes both directions. I really want to honor Leahy, Morgan, Molly, Tim, Patrick, all of you student leaders here, many of whom I've had the privilege of working with in environmental studies. I have the privilege of being at a lot of different schools, and no school touches my heart as deeply as Dartmouth. And no school, in my mind, seems more perfectly poised to create this serious conversation about divestment than Dartmouth does. With people like Ross Virginia in Polar Studies, and Kapuczynski, who has started this class on divestment, Rosie in sustainability, Terry, who talks about philosophy. I think this is a conversation that is not only crucial to have right now, but critical. And we have a student body that is demanding it. There is a new breeze blowing through Dartmouth, and it is fresh and brave and uncertain. We saw this a few weeks ago when classes were canceled for a different kind of conversation, one that included discussions of sexual assault, of racism, of our fear of other. The conversation doesn't end there, and I think it is this extended conversation that leads us to divestment and life. A different kind of story, a new story. And as Patrick said, it's a story that has everything to do with the heart. The human heart is the first home of democracy. It is where we embrace our questions. Can we be equitable? Can we be generous? Can we listen with our whole beings, not just our minds, and offer our attention rather than our opinions? And do we have enough resolve in our hearts to act courageously, relentlessly, without giving up ever, trusting our fellow citizens to join with us in our determined pursuit of a living democracy? Democracy depends on engagement, a first-hand accounting of what one sees, what one feels, what one thinks, followed by the artful practice of expressing the truth of our times through our own talents, our gifts, and vocations. Question, stand, speak, act. It is time to ask, when will our national culture of self-interest stop cutting the bonds of community to shore up individual gain and instead begin to nourish communal life through acts of giving, not taking? It is time to acknowledge the violence rendered to our souls each time a mountaintop is removed to expose a coal vein in Appalachia. We have made the mistake of confusing democracy with capitalism. And we've mistaken political engagement with a political machinery we all understand to be corrupt. It is time to resist the simplistic, utilitarian view that what is good for business is good for humanity in all its complex web of relationships. What I can tell you as a Westerner who comes from Utah and Wyoming, where you used to see the curvature of the earth, now you see rigs. Towns that used to drink their water, the very companies that fouled their water through fracking are delivering them on Mondays. If you've been to North Dakota, it would break your heart with the man camps. If you've been to Florida and the Gulf and seen the wreckage of what BP has left, people that cannot stand to even protest what the dispersants have rendered to them. And just a few weeks ago, I was in Oil City, Pennsylvania, where doors were being knocked on trailers and homes of families who own farms. They're handed a $250,000 check with their name already written on it, saying, all we want to do is drill a well, you'll be rich. They don't talk to them about the poverty that will ensue. And whole families and structures and communities are being torn apart by this. We have to do something. You are calling for a divestment of the future as is now being portrayed. You are calling for an investment in a future that you can imagine. You have a deep, deep role to play. This is brave. It's not only what is possible, but what is necessary. You are creating a disturbance. I want to honor your disturbance. In honoring the students, I wrote a small piece for this occasion. I don't let my students apologize, and so I will not. But what you have to know is it's with the intention of creating a different kind of metaphor. When I close my eyes, I return to this site of disturbance. It is only a brief walk from our house in the desert, our home. It's a place of sand redistributed by a flood, a flash in the night that came with such force, such ferocity, I heard it before I saw it, this thunderous roar. That night, that roar lives inside of me. I opened the front door. The desert was vast and shining, a sea, a mirror reflecting stars. I didn't know where I was. The turbulence didn't register, only the strangeness of water in the desert. The only thing separating the water from me was a dike, built in anticipation of a deluge such as this. I walked up to the dike and witnessed the water moving sideways with such velocity that rolling boulders became a parade passing by with uprooted junipers and cottonwood trees, hundreds of years old, being flushed down valley through the ever-widening arroyo parallel to our house. I stood on the dike alone and watched. A terrifying beauty was eroding the known world before me. There was nothing I could do. And then, as quickly, the flash flood came. It was gone. In the morning, the desert was returned dry. I walked to the place of my midnight dreaming and knelt down to touch the red sand. It was damp. That was all. By the end of the day, that same sand was running through my fingers like sand in an overturned hourglass. I walked back to the house and picked up a rake. I returned to the site of disturbance and began raking sand. I am home in the desert, raking sand. 60 miles north on the banks of the Green River is the site of a proposed nuclear plant. East of Green River, plans have been made for the first tar sands development in the United States to be placed in the heart of the Book Cliffs, one of the wildest areas in Utah, where mountain lions walk the tops of mesas in direct sunlight, like melted butter. And now when you traverse the plateau that leads you to Dead Horse Point, you see more oil rigs and flaming slag ponds than ravens rising from the burnt grasses. America's red rock wilderness is under siege, just like the rest of the world. The New York Times reported on May 10, 2013, that carbon dioxide levels in the Earth's atmosphere have reached, quote, a long-feared milestone, unquote. Scientists say their instrument registers CO2 gas at an average daily level of 400 parts per million. It's been determined by climate scientists the level to maintain is 350 parts per million for a livable future. The CO2 numbers are rising at our own peril. Quote, the best available evidence suggests the amount of gas in the air has not been this high for at least 3 million years. Before humans evolved, and scientists believe the rise portends large changes in the climate and level of the sea. The Earth is a site of disturbance. We are the cause of disturbance. What do we do? I have a friend, and this is the last story I want to tell you. Her name is Trent Alvey, and she makes art. She fashioned a wedding dress made from plastic bubble wrap. It hangs from a whitewashed branch of a disembodied tree. It's a 14-foot shimmering cascade of fossil fuel dreams, where the bubbles of our own illusions are about to pop. She calls her installation Big Bad Love, and dares to ask the question, what are we married to, and what is the nature of our commitments? What contact is she trying to make between the artist and the public? What are we to make of this woman's work at a time when the world's seams are splitting open? Trent has created a site of disturbance. Call it a flash flood of creativity. This is where we are. How can we help? Each of us must find our own way in our own time with the gifts that are ours as we walk through this labyrinth of terrible beauty. This is the work to do. If Albie sees marriage as a prison that ties us to a ball and chain of our own making, be it a person or an ideology that tethers us to our own oppression, we are then robbed of the freedom to change and move forward toward a sustainable and meaningful life. We must divest from our current future. We must slip the bubble-wrap dress off the branch and make something of it. Herein lies the irony of her project, Big Bad Love. The transparent bridal gown becomes a garment of transgression. We've committed ourselves to a lie. The garment of our illusions and captivity with its inherent bow toward the profane becomes a sacred garment of exposure, revealing our nakedness and vulnerability as human beings. We must wear it, own it, and shame ourselves silly and laugh at the horror of Medusa. To be able to grow into this gown of astonishing proportions and wear it ritualistically as the site of our own awareness becomes a revolutionary and evolutionary act. We stand brilliantly, foolishly, caught and exposed, modeling our own marriage to madness. The marriage cannot last. We are disturbed. Let us look in the mirror. We have never been here before. Whenever I close my eyes, this is where I locate myself. I am raking sand in the desert. To Bill McKibben, I know that Morgan is going to introduce you, but as your friend and fellow sister in change, one of the elders made this at the powwow here at Dartmouth yesterday. She knew it was going to you, and she says thank you, as we all do here at Dartmouth College.